With AI spending expected to hit $2.5 trillion in 2026, this is up 44% year over year. The real challenge is no longer investment. It's governance, data readiness, and operationalizing AI at scale across complex enterprise environments. My name is Paul Nashawaty. I'm the practice lead and principal analyst for the AppDev practice. I'm joined by Harsha from NewRocket. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing very well. Would you like to introduce yourself and your company?
Sure. Yes, I'm Harsha Kumar, CEO of NewRocket, and we help enterprises elevate themselves with AI they can trust.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have you on. I mean, super important topic. This is something that's top of mind for many organizations. Enterprises organizations are operationalizing the rapid movement from experimentation with AI to operationalizing it across core business workflows. And the path moving forward is anything but simple. As agentic AI begins to take shape inside organizations, platforms like ServiceNow enterprises are being forced to, not just think about automation, but autonomy, governance, and how decisions are made across distributed systems. At the same time, data remains fragmented across heterogeneous environments, limiting the ability to fully unlock AI's potential. And that's a big challenge. So NewRocket, and based on our conversation, explores how organizations can bridge the gap between ambition and execution. And this is activating agentic AI responsibly while building data governance and foundation required to convert to scale. So let's jump right in. And NewRocket, it's focused on activating agentic AI within ServiceNow. What does this mean?
What this means is, as opposed to having just predetermined automations that can predictably do a set of deterministic steps and leave most of the reasoning and the thought process to humans, agentic AI can actually apply reasoning and take a lot of conditional steps and workflows similar to what a human would do, and then really consult back with the human for judgment when it's really required. So stated differently, it can do a lot more of complex automation compared to what was possible with just standard automation.
But when we think about agentic, what is it, in practice, how different is it from automation enterprise are already familiar with today?
It's very different because what you've done is leverage the strength of Gen AI and large language models and small language models specific to an industry or a company and trained agentic AI around that. So it is able to do a lot more reasoning. Obviously, one has to give it the context, but it can solve very complicated problems similar to what humans do, which was traditionally not possible in standard automation. Standard automation was typically quite deterministic, and it could do things like take data from an input source, fill out forms or screens, and submit it. Obviously, mundane tasks, obviously something that should be automated and has been automated, but agentic AI is taking it from maybe 40-50% automation to literally 98, 99, maybe 100% automation.
Yeah, I think we're moving quite rapidly, evolving and maturing from historical RPA and moving towards how, to innovate. But we see a lot of organizations struggle to balance innovation with control. This is something that is pretty apparent when we look at, what we're seeing at ServiceNow and the upcoming Knowledge event. How does NewRocket approach governance for AI across these heterogeneous environments and enterprise requirements?
That's an excellent question. For AI to be really impactful, AI must cut across multiple systems of record and be able to ingest data and take transactions end to end. Now, when one does that, obviously you can't have agents just running amok. You need identity, you need access control, you need privacy, you need tracking of the transactions that are being done. And most importantly, you want to see that value is actually being accrued from the use of agentic AI. We are launching at Knowledge next week an offering called Maestro. And Maestro is for this. It's for governance and value realization. What Maestro leverages from ServiceNow is the AI control tower. I do believe ServiceNow's AI platform with AI control tower as the underpinning is super enterprise ready. And we are delighted to be partners of ServiceNow at Knowledge, launching Maestro, which works in concert with not only AICT, but also NewRocket Intelligence, which is our platform.
Well, this is really exciting news. Actually, when this goes live, this obviously this is recorded, so we're recording. But like when this goes today, this is when we're announcing Maestro, right? So this is really exciting times.
Today, in November, May 6th, it is today. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important because, when we think about these things, the applications, the information that's being used, data consolidation it comes up as a prerequisite for AI success. This also has a lot to do with the fact that organizations are challenged with sanitizing their data before they put it into these AI models in order for them to be effective. Because it's the same, the saying that garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't have it done. Let's talk a little bit about that. Data consolidation, it comes up. It is the prerequisite. What are your thoughts around that?
Yes, not necessarily data consolidation. It is data cleanliness and data preparation. Often we don't have a standardized data ontology, and that's a huge issue. And even if you do, the semantics could be different. Large enterprises have massive data, and very often in siloed systems, we call it systems of record, but there isn't consistency in what a field means. Due date. Does due date mean due date to complete all the tasks? Does it mean beginning of business day, end of business day, middle of the day? And what does completion even mean? So those are the challenges that enterprises have. There could be missing data, there could be duplicate data, there could be inconsistent data. And that is the biggest inhibitor to enterprise AI adoption. Clean data, enough of it, is the fuel for AI. And we help our tools, we use our tools. NewRocket Intelligence has a module for data cleanup, and it uses AI to help clean up the data. And once the data is cleaned up, then you can actually implement agentic AI on top of it. But that is absolutely a foundational step in the journey.
So a lot of organizations I talk to are concerned about the data as it's coming out of these systems of record. So in my practice, I often deal with past, present, and future, right? Where people are modernizing, and modernization is a treadmill. Apps are continuously modernizing. So these systems of record were built in a way that governance, compliance, regulations, and control were in place for that data. But new systems of engagement, especially when using agents and MCP servers, and you're extracting data out of these heritage systems, that control, the worry is it gets lost. And without having the data, the metadata and the semantic layer in place, that information can be basically shared to parties that it shouldn't be shared to. What are your thoughts around that?
Again, ServiceNow does a really great job of providing an architecture which is enterprise scale. They have something called the Workflow Data Fabric. And Workflow Data Fabric can be used in two modes. It can be used in a zero copy mode, which means, let's say there is this HR data in Workday or some manufacturing data in SAP. It can stay in Workday or SAP, and you can just reference the data, so it's called zero copy. Or you might decide to bring the data over to RaptorDB, which is the database under ServiceNow, and in which case it can be done in a secure way. And obviously, every time data is accessed via an API call or directly, all of that is being logged, which is why AI Control Tower is so important, so that you can see what's happening to the data and how is it being used through. So that's one way of doing it, through data access. The other way, as you said, is through MCP. Again, ServiceNow has the AI agent fabric. So there's Workflow Data Fabric for data integration, and there's agent fabric for agent-to-agent MCP-based communication. All of this has to be tracked, because in the future world, obviously it's a beautiful world with agents doing all the mundane work for us, but if you don't govern it and control it, it can be absolute chaos. If a transaction goes wrong, how do you know what to unwind? How do you know why it happened? How do you know how to prevent it from happening again?
Yeah, it comes down to accountability, right? I mean, organizations have to be accountable for what they're doing, and putting those tech stacks in place in order to work with it, they have to be accountable. But from your perspective, where organizations and enterprises are getting stuck, like trying to operationalize AI platforms inside ServiceNow, what separates the leaders from the laggards, right? Like if depending on where organizations are in their maturity, what separates them? How do they get going? But how do the leaders stay in the front?
There's four things that I think I would like listeners to think about. First of all, do you have a business case where the value that's predicted and projected is clear? If not, think of the use case. It could be activating an order in telecom. It could be processing a claim in insurance, and map out how much manual effort goes into making that transaction complete. Lay it all out, model how much AI can help, and have a desired state in terms of value to be accrued. That's number one. Be clear on the value that's going to come from the AI. The second is specific to ServiceNow. A lot of customers have been using it for 20 years, and they may have done a lot of customizations which have made it deviate from the standard architecture and therefore cannot leverage AI properly. So we have this offering launching today called Origin, which brings ServiceNow custom app implementations back to box using an AI-infused methodology. Once you use Origin and get ServiceNow back to box, then you can implement AI on it. The third is the whole data preparation, data cleanup we already spoke about. Data is the fuel for AI. So you can have a great ServiceNow implementation, poor data, it's not going to give you value. So a NewRocket intelligence platform helps with the data cleanup. And then, of course, you have to govern it, right? Once you've done all of this, you got to govern it. The final thing I would say, the fourth aspect is make it easy for users within the company to use AI. All of us love the Google text box, right? There's one text box, you type in whatever you want, it figures it out. So ServiceNow has Employee Works, which is based on the MoveWorks acquisition, is beautiful. Once it's set up, the employee just goes into this one text box. Whether it's an HR question, a finance question, a delivery question, it just figures it out. It just works. And that is super important for adoption. Users want an easy-to-use interface.
Absolutely. Actually, we're seeing that organizations are hiring generalists over specialists, and we're actually seeing that the friction, they're pushing back on vendors to reduce the friction so their generalists can do the job. So you're spot on. But with that same sentiment, like looking ahead, when we look at agentic AI, it's kind of, relatively new, so to speak. It's about a year old or so. How do you see agentic AI reshaping enterprises' workflow over the next few years? And what should organizations be doing now to prepare for that evolution as it's changing?
I'll tell you what we are doing, because we are no different from any other company, right? We have a business we are running. Clarity in the business outcome is super critical. So when I look at my delivery organization, I'm looking for specific improvement in speed to deliver, productivity, gross margins with the use of AI. So having the end clearly identified and having a roadmap to build towards that is super critical. Where companies get stuck is they say, oh, well, let's do a pilot. Let's see if this can do something cool. And that is never going to result in success. AI has great potential, but it has significant barriers, as we discussed. In ServiceNow, is it implemented properly? Is the data clean, etc.? So having that clear outcome is key. The second is bring change agents into the company. Bring in people who are more AI native. Sometimes these are the younger people who have never grown up doing things the traditional way. So disrupt your own thinking, bring in change agents, have a clear outcome in mind, and then you will find the roadmap layout the way you want it to.
Yeah, I like that response. It's kind of thinking ahead of being one step ahead of where you really want to be. That's really what it sounds like to me. Harsha, final words. What do you want the audience to know to learn more? There's a lot that we talked about. Where should they go?
Yeah, so NewRocket is in an exciting time in this industry. We all as professionals have this great opportunity to use AI in ways that we never have. We're excited to be at Knowledge with ServiceNow, partnering with them, also partnering with all the other large AI companies in the world to really bring this innovation. So lean in. Please check out newrocket.com. There's a ton of good content there. My call to action would be, if we can help in any way to reimagine your AI future, please give us a call. We have a flight path offering. We'd love to see if we can help you with that.
Very insightful, super interesting. Thank you for being my guest today on the podcast. And a big thank you to all of you who've tuned in. We appreciate you being part of the AppDevANGLE community. But for now, that wraps up this episode. But we'll be back next Wednesday with another conversation diving into the tools, trends, and talents shaping the future of application development. So whether you're deploying at the edge, building with AI, or modernizing your cloud stack, we've got you covered. Be sure to follow us on social if you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to connect. Until next time, stay curious and stay building.
Yeah.